everyone. Okay, this week's topic is ratios, rates, and proportions. So, what is a ratio, rate, and proportion? That's kind of where we need to start. Well, a proportion or ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Typically, it's set up as a fraction where we're like A is to B, like 12 inches is to 1 foot. It would be written as 12 over 1. It could also be written with a colon in between, 12 to 1. So it's just a comparison of two quantities that are proportional. So we can use proportions to show relationships between two equal quantities with different units. For example, let's say 2 albums are worth $10.50 total. You can set that up as 2 albums is $10.50. 2 albums per $10.50. Okay, so it's a comparison where 2 albums is to $10.50. Okay, and you can also write this in an equivalent way. Since 2 and 10, since these are both divisible by 2, you can write it 1 album is to $5.25. These are equivalent statements. They're equivalent fractions. 1 to 525 is the same as 2 to 1050. Okay, which is the same as 4 to 21. All right, so you can also double them. You can triple them. You can multiply them or divide them however you want. It will be the same proportion. Okay, so if we're saying if 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces, we could write that as 1 to 16. Or we could write that as 1 to 16. Okay, and this is the same as saying 2 to 32 or 3 to 48 because they're equivalent fractions, they're equivalent proportions. Okay, you can do that again here. 2 radians is the same as 360 degrees. 1 radian is the same as 180 degrees. All right, if you divide both of those by 2, those are equivalent fractions, equivalent ratios. All right, we can use these proportional relationships to change units and find equivalent values with a different unit. For example, if 2 albums are worth $10.50, how much are 11 albums? Well, we can set up that ratio. 2 albums is to $10.50. And we want to know, what is that equivalent to? I want to know what's 11 albums equal to. Well, this is technically just an equivalent ratio, right? An equivalent fraction. So I need to figure out, okay, what am I multiplying this by and multiply that by the same thing. That's one option, right? So what you could do is you could find the unit rate. So I could be like, okay, for every 1 album, that's $5.25, right? 2 albums is $10.50. Divide by 2. 1 album is $5.25. This is the unit rate. 1 album is equal to $5.25. So if I want 11 albums and they're each $5.25, I'm just going to multiply. So the one option is to find what we call the unit rate, and that is for every 1, what is the B? For every 1A, what is B? And that way you can use that unit rate to solve. The other option, if you see here, you really just have a fraction and the issue is that your variable is in the denominator. So what we like to do is we like to cross multiply, where you take this guy and you multiply across 2x, and then you keep the equal sign is equal to this other side, 11 times 1050. And then you solve and you wind up with the same thing. So you have 2 options here. All right, and this is typically what you see in a ratio or rate problem, and you're going to see these in your Khan Academy exercises as you move forward. It'll probably start off very easy, and then it'll get harder with word problems towards the end. Okay, So if 2 radians is the same as 360 degrees, how many radians is 540 degrees? So the first thing we can do is set up the proportion that we know. 2 radians is 360 degrees. Now this is radians on top and degrees on bottom. Okay, this is the proportion we know. And now we want to know how many radians. Radians are on top, so that's what we don't know. How many x radians is 540 degrees. Okay, the degrees, they have to line up. So degrees are on the bottom. So this is degrees to degrees, radians to radians. All right, and now we have this guy. I like the cross multiplying way, so I'm going to cross multiply. 2 times 540, that's 1080. You guys can obviously use a calculator. I would encourage you to not use a calculator whenever possible because it's just good practice. So 1080 divided by 360, that I believe is 3018. Yeah, 3. So the answer is 3. 3 radians is 540 degrees. Okay, the other option would be to find the unit rate. So we know that 2 radians is 360 degrees. What is 1 radian? 1 radian is 180 degrees. And so we need to figure out how many radians is 540 and then use the unit rate to do so. But either way, you're really just creating this proportion and then cross multiplying. I would very much recommend the cross multiplying way, setting up a proportion, and then cross multiplying and solving for the missing variable. So let's try the next one. A bike track is 3.1 miles long. If Julie biked 30 laps around the track, how many kilometers did she bike last week? 1 kilometer is approximately 0.62 miles. Okay, so a bike track is 3.1 miles long. So she did 30 of those 3.1 miles, right? So she went around that track 30 times, and each time it's 3.1 miles. Okay, technically, this is not a proportion yet. We're going to get there. So we just know, first we have to figure out, okay, how many miles in total did she go? She went 3.1 30 times, so times 30. Should be 93 miles. Okay, and now the question is, how many kilometers did she bike last week? Now this is what we know. 1 kilometer is 0.62 miles, so I'm going to set up this proportion. This is a proportion. 1 kilometer is 0.62 miles, and I know my kilometers are on top and my miles are on the bottom. All right, and now the question is, I know she did 93 miles, so miles is on the bottom. The question is, how many kilometers is that? So I'm going to cross multiply. So 1 times 93. It doesn't really matter which order you go in because they're just equivalents on the other side. 0.62x. Now to solve for x, we divide by 0.62 on both sides of this. I can't do in my head, so shoot, dang, my calculator is not here. I have my computer. Let's see, 93 divided by 0.62, 150. And there is our answer. All right. Let's try the next one. As of 2016, the Burj Khalifa in the United Arab Emirates is the tallest structure in the world at 2,722 feet. At 2,080 feet, the Tokyo Skytree in Japan is the second tallest. To the nearest meter, how much taller is the Burj Khalifa compared to the Tokyo Skytree? Okay, so this is in feet. So we are wondering how much taller is the Burj Khalifa compared to the Tokyo Skytree in meters? So first, we know that the Tokyo Skytree is 2080 feet, and the Burj Khalifa is 2,722 feet. So how much taller is the Burj Khalifa? Well, how do you figure out the difference in height between two people? Well, that's the difference. It's subtraction. So we're just going to subtract. I'm going to do it by hand here. 642 feet is the difference in height. And now we need our proportion because we need to go from feet to meters. And now I'm going to look that up. It's about 3 feet to a meter. .28, so 3.28 feet to 1 meter. And now I know I have 642 feet, and the question is, how many meters is that? And so we cross multiply. Okay, so first we set up the proportion that we know, 3.28 is to 1, and then we set up our x side to figure out what are we going to be looking for. And we solve for x. Uh, 195.7 meters. All right, last one here. I lied, there's 3 more. And then you will be done. So joules and British thermal units are both units of energy. They are directly proportional such that 5 British thermal units is 5,275 joules. So we know this is the proportion that we're given. How much energy in thermal units is equal to 13,082 joules? So we'll start with the proportion we know. 5 British thermal units is equal to 5,275 joules. And now the question is, how much energy in thermal units, so this is what we don't know, is equal to 13,082 joules. All right, and then we cross multiply. So 13,082 times 5 is 65410. 5275x, and then we divide by 5275. .4 British thermal units. Okay, a couple more here. All right, so here we have a circle. The circle above has center of 0 if the length of the arc is 15, so from here to here. Oh, major arc is 15, that's this whole thing. So a major arc is the bigger arc. Arcs are just like the outside of the circle. So this here is a minor arc, right here from, I'll use a different color. From here to here. This is the minor arc, and the black is the major arc. So from A all the way around to B, that's the major arc, is equal to 15. And it's asking, what is the entire circle? Now, you might be asking, well, I don't really see a proportion here. Well, there's one thing that we do see, and that's this little guy right here, which means this is 90 degrees. So when we're looking at arcs, we're really looking at like proportion of the circumference. So we can set up a proportion because we can see that, all right, this entire circle The degrees in the entire circle is 360 degrees. And this major arc that we're looking at is not the whole circle, it's 360 minus 90. So 270 degrees. So we know that 270 degrees is 15. Now the question is, what is the entire circumference? So what's the entire circle going to be? So we know the entire circle in degrees is 360. And now the question is, what is that whole length? Okay, this is one way to do it. This is how I would do it. If you have a different way, cool. But this is how you would use it with proportions. And then divide by 270, divide by 270. Should be 20. All right. All right. A long distance relay race takes place over the course of 2 days, and each day's race is separated into 5 sections. If the distance of each section is 21.8 kilometers, what is the closest to the total distance of the race in miles? So the first thing is we need to find the total distance in kilometers, and then we'll use proportions to make it into miles. So, kilometers, 21.8 kilometers is the distance of each section. Now there are 5 sections, so that's 21.8 plus 21.8 plus 5 times. 21.8 times 5. 109. Okay, so there's 109 kilometers in all the 5 sections. Okay, so a long distance relay race takes place over the course of 2 days, and each day's race is in 5 sections. So this is just 1 day. Now we have 2 days. So in total, it's 218 kilometers. What is the closest to the total distance of the race in miles? So now we know we need to figure out how many miles this is. So the ratio that we do know is 1 kilometer is to 0.62 miles. And now we know we have 218 kilometers, and we want to figure out how many miles that is. And then I'm going to cross multiply. And I get this. And then it says, what is the closest to the total distance of the race in miles? So it's about 135 miles. That's pretty darn long. Shoot dang. All right, number 7, last one. The stone, an English unit of weight, is equal to 14 pounds. Ooh, so they're giving us a proportion right away. 1 stone equals 14 pounds. A kilogram is approximately equal to 2.2 pounds. If a water buffalo weighs 0.7 metric tons, what is the weight in stones? So this is just like a lot of proportions. So we need to get to stones, and we're currently in metric tons. Okay. So what we're going to have to do is work our way backwards. So we're given that we have 0.7 metric tons, and we're given this proportion. So let's start with this proportion. 1 metric ton, these are metric tons, is equal to 1,000 kilograms. And I know I have 0.7 metric tons, and I want to figure out how many kilograms that is. So I'm going to go across multiply. 700 kilograms. Okay, so we know we have 700 kilograms. Now we can go from a kilogram to pounds. Okay, so now we can be like, okay, I know that 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds, and I have 700 kilograms, how many pounds is that? And we can cross multiply again. Double check that. Okay, so this is how many pounds we have. And now we can go from pounds to stones, because we know that 1 stone is equal to 14 pounds. We need to figure out how many stones is equal to 1540 pounds. All right, so then we cross multiply and then divide. 110 is equal to x. Yes. 1, 0. Yep. So it's 110 stones. Okay, you can also do this with chemistry stuff called stoichiometry, but I'm going to keep this as proportions for now. Stoichiometry is just a long list of proportions, so you're welcome to do that if you remember how, but this is definitely a very clear way to do it. Go one step at a time and get to the end point. All right, that is everything for ratios, rates, and proportions. A good review of the hard stuff. So hopefully now you'll find that Khan Academy is much easier as you work your way up to word problems. Good luck.